So Nathan, thank you for thank you for your good company today.
Cheers, mate.
Really appreciate it. And just to give full context to the viewer and to the listener out there, I came across a video that you shared via Facebook. Really, when this whole sort of COVID-19 thing happened and lockdown happened, you really set the context for how families ought to operate with kids during this time whilst trying to be productive at the same time. And I just needed to reach out to you, and I just want to say to everyone out there publicly, thank you for your time and for having this conversation with me today and for the listener. I also just want to make a note, alongside me over here is my partner. We take photography, we'll do photography, and then there are kids that are going to be running around. So if you are listening or watching, please.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat.
Yeah. Okay. So look, it's not about me, it's about you today. So I am going to open up by asking you a question that I think will help you define yourself on your terms. So who is Nathan Wallace and how did he get to this point?
Right. Well, how much time have we got? Right. I think mainly people know me as a brain development expert, I suppose, and that then launches into parenting and goes into trauma. But it's about really, I think I explain the brain and how the brain works, and then bringing all the literature around parenting. I used to be a primary school teacher, then I was a child counsellor, then an early childhood teacher, then a university lecturer, and a neuroscience trainer. So I brought a little bit of each of those jobs into it to try and summarise all the research-based information for professionals and now more for parents. So that people can make their own informed decisions, really. But yeah, it's all central often around parenting and around the brain. That's, I think what brought me here though is, everything, my temperament, my family life. I come from a large family, extended family.
Yeah, tell us about
12,
that.
Mum's from a family of like 12 kids, so I'm one of those people that, and they all lived in the bottom half of the South Island with me. So I grew up with like 60 cousins around, so there was always babies and things around. And from the time I remember, people said, I'll give the baby to Nathan because the baby stops crying when you give him to Nathan. And I had that really early on. And so all those experiences, I think, combined, and then my professional career and parenting and everything.
So I want to double down on that story that you just told where, I guess the parents would say, I'll give the baby to Nathan because, the kid will calm down. Would you say that in that moment you realized that something around kids was your vocation?
No, it took me ages to learn that. What I thought, to be honest, was everybody around me is stupid. Why don't they listen to them? What I thought, because I was in a generation where people said leave the baby to cry, and I remember as a 4-year-old hearing a 4-week-old cry and thinking, no, that's wrong. I would staying with my auntie, she had a little baby, my cousin. She thought I was so well behaved because I'd say, well, it's time for me to go to bed now, and so I would take myself off to bed. But really, it's because the baby had just gone to bed and was left crying, and I wanted to sneak into his room and rock the bassinet to stop the baby from crying and rock him off to sleep.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't think, oh, here's my vocation. I just thought, what are these idiots doing? Can you not tell?
Yeah, can you not tell? Yeah, geez, unbelievable.
And I thought other people didn't listen to children. I've always thought it was the most obvious thing to listen to a child, that they're always telling you everything they say and do is communication. And that most people around to be able to listen to that. So they thought it was a miracle that I could go, he's hungry, or no, he's scared, you just need to comfort him. I'd be like, oh, Nathan can read the secret language babies. But
you're really, like the child whisperer.
Yeah, whereas I was like, no secret language, what is wrong with you people? I still kind of think that, really.
But Nathan, so I'm nowhere near your level. Just to share with you some context, I was exposed to learning in the brain through the Neuro Leadership Group.
Oh, okay, sweet.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but learned so much about the prefrontal cortex and about the sort of the basal is it ganglia, the habit forming center in the brain, and how we only have sort of 2 hours sort of lifetime of thinking, and how do you extend that within a day, the 2 hours in a day. And so became really familiar with the brain. And that process opened up, I think, my consciousness and how I viewed children, you know, because and why all of a sudden kids like at the drop of a hat throw a tantrum where they're fine and then they drop off, and it's all going to do with, well, it's all going to do with like the energy that they have in the brain, like and also languaging, you know, they don't have language, so they can't talk to us, but their whole body is communicating with us. So at that time when I was exposed to the New Leadership Group, I just become a father. Our eldest was born, and so it was sort of like this sort of baptism by fire in terms of trying to understand things. And I want to touch on something that you said in that video that sparked my attention. You drew the comparison between 1920s operating system and 2020. Now,
the one that's based on research.
Yeah, so I feel like what we're talking about now is 2020 understanding. Can you define for the listener and for the viewer out there what is the base? What is the 1920s sort of parent revert to?
When a parent goes to teach, they tend to fall from a 1920s model rather than a 2020 model.
Yeah.
So that means that they tend to use scare tactics. You tend to be that old-fashioned schoolman that's scaring kids into learning and just focusing on the outcome. I want you to know your 10 times table. And if I can strap you over the knuckles, they're not really going to do that, but strap you over knuckles with a ruler, I can get you to spout off your 10 times table in a short space of time because you're petrified, so you learn it through fear. But the research tells us that you're not likely to retain it, and most importantly, you don't understand it. You didn't understand the process. And what you've learned as a learner is that learning is scary, learning is a difficult process, learning is something I don't like. That's what actually sets you up for the rest of your life, not the outcome. So the 1920s model tends to focus on the outcome at all costs, whereas we know that people who are successful in education are people who like learning.
People who are in a towards learning versus being put in what I call an away state. So
I know it doesn't have to be 1920s. It could be 1960s, you know, when the parents doing the reading with the child and going, oh no, come on, it's the same word that it was 2 pages ago. Look, it's got 2 letters, I-T. I mean, if you're reading your child a story like that, you'd be better off never to read to the child at all, actually, because you're doing more damage than you are good. So it's those, that's what the underlying behaviors, what we call in the research dispositions, the disposition that your child brings towards learning. Are they confident? Are they confident to express an opinion? When they fail the first time, do they persevere because they're used to having success after that? Or do they give up immediately? These are the dispositions that underpin learning. And a 2020 model of teaching is going to be aware of that. And so we're 1920 model, just going to, get them knowing the 10 times table at all costs.
Now, I think I've probably jumped the gun a bit because you've obviously, we've gone into some granular detail, but to double back and for the listener, for the viewer out there, you've got a business called Conscious Intelligence. What is the extent of, what does that business cover?
Conscious intelligence is like a vision and a goal, what we talk about. So it's another way of saying metacognition, but metacognition sounds a bit academic. And the way cognition just means thinking. Okay. And meta kind of means thinking about. So metacognition is thinking about thinking. Okay. When I explain cognition to parents, I'll say like a monkey's got cognition. A monkey can think. So a monkey has cognition, but a monkey can't think about how they think. A monkey can't work out if he's an auditory learner or a visual learner, so he can think, but he can't think about thinking. So metacognition, a monkey has cognition, but they don't have metacognition.
Is that the same as awareness? So like observer, I'm the observer, but I'm also observing the observer.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. Observing the observer. That step detachment is another way of saying it. So you detach, third person perspective, stand outside yourself. But it's that, metacognition, thinking about thinking. Know thyself. And you said earlier about, you know, when you learned the brain stuff, and then you took that to your parenting because you know thyself. Understand, oh, okay, that's my limbic system and that's my frontal cortex. And just knowing the workings of that. That's not the whole answer, but you've got another layer of knowing thyself. So that's what conscious intelligence is. It's being conscious of my intelligence so you use it to your betterment and to your advantage. If people aren't conscious of their intelligence, they'll do things like say, oh, I'm really stupid at maths, so I really can't do maths.
Yeah. And that languaging reinforces the behavior.
Right.
It's just a downward spiral.
That languaging reinforces the behavior. If you're conscious of the fact that your brain is voice activated, so it kind of believes the stuff that comes out of your mouth, then even if you are shit at maths, it serves you not at all to be saying, I'm useless at maths, you know? Saying, I'm learning maths. I'm getting better at maths every day. Yeah. I'm really committed to improving my maths. All of those are growth mind statements. Yeah. So if you're conscious, you will use those things to your advantage rather than actually be perpetuating a negative situation by constantly saying I'm useless at maths, or I can't read maps, or I'm not a gym person, or, you know, whatever the negation thing is.
So would you say that the mind or consciousness is not only voice activated, but also thought activated? Like if you're thinking those things, they also become truth?
Yes, but not as much as language. You can't underestimate how important it is when you voice it out loud. It uses so much more of your brain. So I think, obviously, I think the voice inside your head is another thing.
I guess that's what I was talking about.
The voice inside your head, I think that's a key part of becoming consciously intelligent. You have to get to that point where you consciously take control of that voice in your head. Okay. If you just leave it to the lowest common denominator, it tends to be negative, it tends to be critical, it tends to tell you you're not good enough. You've got to think of that voice as being your best friend. And would you accept that from a best friend? Would you keep a best friend around that constantly said, you can't do that, you're nowhere near good enough to do that? You know, you wouldn't have a best friend like that. So you have to train the voice inside your head. So I think they're two separate things. That voice inside your head is supposed to be your best friend. And you have to train it to be your best friend because you're in charge of that now. You're a grown up. But also, it's what you voice activate. So it's really important that you say out loud. So much of your brain is devoted to interaction and the actual interaction with other people. And we do that through language. So it's I think it's way more powerful for me to say, I'm getting really good at reading maps, will do way more to actually change the biology of my brain to get ready to read maps, much more than me just thinking it inside my head. It's like thinking it's just only 10% of the power.
Yeah.
Making up the 10%, but you know what I mean? Metaphorically, it just doesn't have the same oomph to the brain because the brain's so loaded to interaction. So I just want people to get the message that your voice is really powerful. So get it to say really powerful stuff. You know?
So how important then are affirmations? So
important for that reason. You can literally change your life through affirmations. They're not just a warm, fluffy, airy, fairy thing that makes you feel good on the edges. They're a fundamental thing that programs your brain. You know, if you literally, it's a thing called mirror work. Look in the mirror, establish eye contact with yourself meaningfully, and say a statement 10 times that you wish is true is not necessarily true. I feel really calm and articulate when I meet new people. You know, so you must be getting flustered when you meet new people. So you look yourself meaningfully in the mirror every day and say, I feel calm, articulate when I meet new people. I feel calm and articulate when I meet new people.
Yeah.
I feel calm. You know, you repeat it 10 times and just do that meaningful in your face. You will find you'll see the huge impact it has on your behavior. You will actually find through serendipity and coincidence that other people that have no idea you're doing that will now start using those exact words to describe you. They'll actually literally start getting other people using those words to describe you. Like, you know, when you get an Audi and then suddenly you're the only other car you see on there, suddenly you see all these Audis.
Yes, yeah.
But you will notice suddenly you are paying attention to the fact that you are articulate and calm when you meet new people, because suddenly you have the words articulate and calm in relation to meeting new people coming at you all the time. Affirmation is incredibly powerful to the brain because it's voice activated.
Yeah.
So fake it till you make it is another way of saying that. You don't actually have to believe that you're going to be articulate. people, you could believe underneath that you're going to have an anxiety attack because that's what's happened every other time. But if you're saying it meaningfully into your face out loud, that interaction changes the biology of your brain. So that's so.
There was a time when I was going through, just to share with you how affirmations have changed or helped me. There was a lot of anxiety around work a couple of years ago, and I went to a hypnotherapist who helped with developing affirmations. And one of them that still comes to mind is, I'm relaxed, I'm confident, I'm positive, I treat my body with respect, I feed it correctly, and I exercise my body that I may get the most out of each and every day. And I would literally repeat that like 10 to 30 times in the morning, the whole mirror thing. And I must say that, I mean, I sort of fell out of the habit because I didn't need that crutch anymore. But it's certainly, now that you're mentioning the affirmation piece, it's reminding me of its value at a period, you know.
Yes. I think also your brain doesn't need the crutch anymore, because then by doing it, for 3 months, you do build up the myelin in the brain. So it's there. Those pathways there believe what you've just said.
Yeah.
So you need for a start to sort of repeat it every day to get that part of your brain, the cobwebs blown out of that part, and get that oiled up and going.
Well, I mean, the fact that I could just call it up just now was just like, it's there, you know, so.
And your brain is always at every moment choosing what it attends to. No one's really seeing the full picture. You couldn't really possibly take in all the information that's happening around you right now. So every single person has to have a lens of that information. So, it's a powerful thing. I think affirmations help us to decide what that lens is and to take more positive stuff on board.
Yeah. Now, talking about being positive during this period, I wanted to get into the next question that I think is worth exploring with you, given that you're an expert in this area. And so I'm just literally going to read out the question that I'd shared with you via email. So the question reads, with the change happening around us, what are the key do not do things that we may all unconsciously revert to during this time? So basically, what can we collectively do to wake up our unconsciousness and be more aware as people working from home with, in some cases or in most cases, with kids? Like, what are those things that we need to become aware of to make the most out of this time?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sort of hearing two questions there. So you started out with the big do not do's.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Because when you first said the two not do's, I think the danger is the first things that come into my mind are spending a lot of time on screens.
Okay.
I mean, we're doing it now, but this is interactive.
Yeah.
But there is a danger associated with lots of screen time. So it's so easy to fall into being on the screen all the time. And the other danger of not to do is to fall out of having regular routines, to fall into our lowest common, I know without much self-control, I can easily get up, because this is often described as Sunday actually, where I sort of let myself have a little, so I could get up, stay in my underwear, not bother even getting dressed or really having a shower for the first 4 hours while you wander around having like a really super lazy morning. Yeah. And you're still getting done because there's phone calls and emails and things, but you're not following your normal exercise routine and that normal rhythm. You're having a day off. So easy to make that 7 days a week, and then your mental health goes way out the window. It's so easy to get more sleep than you need. So suddenly you wake up when you want to. You can actually get too much sleep as well. That's not associated with good mental health. You can let your circadian rhythm fall out, so you're hardly getting any daylight hours because you're getting up at maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then you're up all night and sleeping all day, so you're not getting the sunlight hours. So that's what I'd say what not to do. Don't fall into having no rhythm and routine and a out of kilter circadian rhythm, your wake and sleep cycle. Yeah. Because that's just a recipe for depression. So what to do during this time, what I think people are going to really get from it is that thing we just discussed about know thyself, metacognition, conscious intelligence. People are going to have to be more conscious of how they operate. They're going to have to be more conscious of their intelligence. They're going to, have to go, it doesn't, I'm going to have to set the alarm, even though I'm working glide time, it doesn't do me good to actually sleep to 11 and get out of rhythm. I'm going to have to exercise self-control. What does? I know for me, the way I get up in the morning very much sets the routine for the day. So I only don't feel like I have to exercise lots of self-control throughout the day, as long as when I get up, I turn around and make my bed, which and then I follow my routine of having breakfast and doing exercise. If I start the day that way, I get lots of stuff done the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas if I start the day slack and skip those routines and just get straight into doing emails or something and get sidetracked, then my day feels very hectic and out of kilter, and I don't feel like I get as much done, even though I've put in the same amount of energy.
Yeah.
So know yourself, know what are your triggers to make this, how is this going to work for you? You're going to have create stuff we talked about, a third person perspective.
So that know thyself element, how can someone get to know themselves?
There are exercises you can do, actually, just about screen time, but actually just Googling that question, exercises and self-awareness. There's lots of ways, because there is no one self-awareness. There is no one understanding of Bevan that is self-aware. Bevan's going to be a multifaceted, so self-awareness is an ever-evolving. It's a present that you just keep unwrapping all the time. But you can certainly encourage self-awareness with that metacognition, third-person perspective. There's exercises you can do. People are doing self-awareness all the time, really. When horoscopes are often the way that people do. Even if they're just going into the paper and looking up, Sagittarius and, they're all nurturing, and it doesn't matter how much validity you want to give that. So it gives that person a framework to use metacognition, stand outside themselves and say, oh, yes, that's me exactly. I am a compassionate person who gives. I don't even know if that's what a Sagittarian is, but you get my idea. Doesn't matter what it is. The fact that they are using it for metacognition is getting to know thyself. Asking your friends is often an interesting one, because there's the layer that your autobiographical memory of how you like to see yourself. Yeah. But then there's other people around you that actually know you quite well. I've got a 23-year-old son who's a sort of a mini me in lots of ways. He's very like me. He doesn't look like me, but he thinks like me. Yeah. And I remember when his younger sister was leaving home, and now it's going to be no kids at home. And I was like, woohoo, yeah, that's going to be great. I'm going to love living by myself. And my son was like, you ain't going to last 5 minutes living by yourself, Dad. You need constant stimulation from other people and company and stuff. You'll like it for a wee bit, but you won't. I'm like, no, you're just thinking that because you've just only been around me. I've always had large family around me and stuff. I had a life before you were around, and I'm quite used to being by myself, and actually I think I'll really, really enjoy it. Long story short, 2 weeks into it, I was nearly insane. I started looking at me and I realized, there's a whole element of me that my really 23-year-old son knows me better than I do. Not right across the board, but clearly. So now I just notice those things, and so now if I want an opinion, I don't have to ask him often, he'll just give it anyway, but if I have an opinion on something, I will ask him and take his into account, even if at first I think, oh no, that's not right. Yeah. Because I know I've thought that before and it's turned out that he is right. So there's exercises you can do to improve your self-awareness. You ask your friends about things. There's whole community organisations out there dedicated to self-awareness. A lot of my friends have done that landmark course. Oh yeah. I've been exposed to a similar program. Yeah, that definitely opened up my brain. Have gained lots of self-awareness because my understanding of it is that the whole program is based around self-awareness. You get to understand your stories. Yeah, the stories that you tell yourself that maybe are sabotaging growth. That you sort of discard those old narratives. And create new ones. Exactly. Yeah. And new narratives that really serve you well. Dream analysis is another way we learn self-awareness. Your dreams are often seen as one way that your subconscious communicates to you, and through symbolic language. That's quite Carl Jung. Yes, I'm a huge Jung. Yeah. I've got Jung's red book up over there. I loved Carl Jung when I was studying, human development and different theorists around personality development. Jung was the one that really sung to me. So but there is did you I'm assuming you followed Piaget and also Erik Erikson, the 7 stages of early childhood development. You were exposed to that? They're sort of more imposed in your early education. Everybody teach and learn Piaget. You don't have any choice. In fact, Piaget is the only theorist that you learn if you're an early childhood, primary or secondary school teacher. It's the one theorist that spreads right across. You could say Piaget is the father of the Western education system. So
Yeah.
everyone. Erickson, yeah, he gets airtime, but not necessarily more airtime. Like Bronfenbrenner is the main theorist for the New Zealand early childhood educational curriculum. Vygotsky is another one. They might put Piaget and Vygotsky as being the two. As a Russian theorist who focused. Piaget was much on stages of development, like it was driven by biology, whereas Vygotsky was very much driven by interaction and social development. So who you were with was huge in Vygotsky's thing. So I suppose just where I am in history, by the time I got to university, we just learned summaries of all those people, like Freud, and understand them within a historical context.
Yes.
But things change rapidly nowadays, that each of them
so rapidly.
Stepping stone in a way. I wouldn't commit to any one theorist. I think those days are over where you become a Jungian
or a Freudian.
Well, yeah. I think it's too fast nowadays. So we're actually like a patchwork quilt of all of those people. In some way.
We take the best bits from each of them.
And now at the neuro, this window, this lens we've got now into understanding how the brain works, because I don't think the brain is the be-all and end-all of it. You talked about the prefrontal cortex before. I don't even think that's where our seat of consciousness is. I think the prefrontal cortex is like a toolkit, a toolbox. It's wonderful tools to have to be able to regulate emotion, focus your attention, engage higher cognition, but it is not essentially what it means to be a human. It's a toolbox. I think our human experience is much more anchored in that emotional and spiritual.
I'm no expert as compared to yourself, but I will agree with that point. I think there's intelligence in such the deep layers of us at a cellular level that I think to attribute intelligence as we know it to just one part of our physiology, I think is a misnomer. So I mean, anyway, I'm digressing now. I wanted to get into a scenario. Say the listener or the viewer, the likelihood is they'll be watching this or listening to this at home with kids. We've spoken about what they themselves can do to know themselves, to ask friends, to double down on, discovering some exercises and self-awareness. When it comes to kids and stuff at home and sort of tapping into your expertise, what are the top 3 to 5 things that can be done right now to change the game, to change the level of maybe trepidation or fear or non-starter syndrome that people might feel about their productivity levels? What can they employ from your expert opinion?
Okay, well, I think one of the things you can do straight away for productivity is to have clearly assigned times when you're doing family stuff and when you're doing work stuff. Okay. Don't try and multitask. Multitask is an illusion. Your brain doesn't really like multitasking. So you're actually end up doing both jobs in a half-ass way. You're far better off. When you are helping the kids with their homework but peeling the potatoes and listening to the national radio, the research, you might not feel it, but research shows over and over again, you will do all 3 of those jobs way more efficiently and retain way more doing 3 of them in a row, 10 minutes each, than you will doing the 3 of them at the same time for 30 minutes. It's an illusion that multitasking helps. It doesn't.
And just to double down on that, I think because I have been exposed to the neuro leadership stuff, the brain can only switch between tasks. Apparently, it can't multitask. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We call it cognitive flexibility.
Where
you switch between tasks. So when we say women are good multitaskers, for brain geeks, we're actually saying women have good cognitive flexibility. Because when mum's able to, when dad watches the rugby, he seems to achieve nothing but watching the rugby. And then when mum watches the rugby, at the end of the rugby, she got the washing on and she got the potatoes at the same time and she didn't. We call it multitasking because she got both those things done, but it's really cognitive flexibility. She didn't have both sides of the brain at one. She didn't have the right side going, go All Blacks, and the left side sorting colours at the time. She went from one to the other. She used that bridge in the middle of the brain called the corpus callosum, and she jumped from the right brain, go All Blacks, to the left brain, separate the whites from the colours, and then she jumped back to the go All Blacks, then she jumped back to the peeling potatoes, then she jumped back to the... She did it so fast, we call it multitasking, but really it's cognitive flexibility.
That's
so
great.
Do that, but yeah, don't try and multitask it. So your kids will end out like their cup's half full, and they'll just feel like they're wanting that's more attention. That stereotype of Western children constantly pulling on the apron strings because their cup's half full and wanting more attention.
Yeah.
You'd have been better off to actually stop what you were doing them, give them your full undivided focus attention for an hour, and their cups would be full.
Yeah.
And then you've got lots more time to work them. So number one is don't multitask, allocate designated times. That's very important for children because children's, like all humans, need prediction. Prediction calms the survival response. That brainstem thing, as soon as you're in an environment where you don't know what's going to happen, it has to arouse that alert survival thing. So predictability. And if you can say to the kids, no, I'm going to stop working at 2 o'clock and we're going to play for an hour and we're going to do whatever you want and we'll follow your games, and it's much easier for the rest of the day when the kid's like, Dad, I want you to read this story, for you to be able to go, okay, buddy, we'll do that at 2 o'clock when Dad stops to play. And it's just, so it works for you, your mental health, but it also works for the kids, and it gives them a sense of predictability and calm. Because that was the other thing I'd say to do, is just to make sure you still have routines, not routines by the clock, but routines by rhythm. So not that you have to have tea at 5 every night and make sure they're in the bath by 6:30, but more that do you have tea and then a bath and then a story and then bedtime. The rhythm of that helps to calm children, calm all that survival response. So keep those family rhythms going.
That's so. I just want to sort of amplify that last thing that you said, because I feel like the productive A-type personality that, say, works in a high-powered corporate job, say for one of the big 4 audit firms, or maybe it's a lawyer firm or whatever, the people who are successful generally are A-type, and A-types work by structure like that. And like, it's really good that you share that in that way, because it's about feeling the energy of the family out as the day goes, but making sure that the nodes of what needs to be done are done. It doesn't necessarily have to happen at 5 o'clock on the money or 6 o'clock or whatever it is. And so I just wanted to amplify that, because I think that's super important, because when we're defining what success looks like at the beginning of the day, I don't think it should be pegged to, did I do this at 5 o'clock, or did we as a family do this at 6 o'clock? I think the timetable needs to be maybe secondary, like, and maybe even celebrate, like, if your rhythms do align with the times that you have in your mind, then maybe have a little song and a dance and pat yourself on the back. But I think, especially during this time when things are in flux, I think rhythm is more important, based on what you've just said, than a structured timetable. Would you agree?
So the key words really for the brain is that predictability, and the rhythm is predictable. Little kids can't tell the time. They don't live their time.
No. Yeah.
So it is that allows them predictability.
So we've got rhythms, we've got clearly assigned times that we're going to be playing with the kids or being productive. What else is there that we could consider?
Immediately, you should be looking after your physical health and well-being. That just physical exercise releases endorphins. I'm not a runner, and I live on a hill. I've got low blood pressure. One of the only negatives of having low blood pressure means I'm in the low risk category later adult life for having strokes and stuff. So I'm in that really healthy zone. The negative is we don't walk up hills well. We lose breath, really. You need pressure to walk up hills. Okay. And I live on a hill, so I don't want to get out. I'd rather be on the flat. But I just know how important physical exercise is. So, I'm starting my day. That's part of the routine as well. And it's to start my day with I suppose I'm starting it with the hardest stuff, so I don't put it off, or else I'll procrastinate all day. So I start the day with that hour exercise. There's such a strong correlation with endorphin release and all the good, serotonin and dopamine, all the good peptides for the brain. So there's a strong body to show it's released through physical exercise. So there's another must. Do some sort of physical exercise. In the literature now, they even talk about the mailbox effect, which just means that just the endorphins you get from walking to check the mailbox to see if any mail's been and back to the house releases enough to be able to slightly change your perspective. Associated with. So we no longer have to think of just exercising for 20 minutes and getting the heart rate up. Actually, any movement is associated with releasing that good stuff. So just keep moving.
What are your thoughts around the whole concept of use it or you'll lose it? when connected to physical health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's true. I mean, when the brain takes something on board, it never actually loses it. You know, if you spoke German until you were 4 and then shifted here and only ever spoke English after that, you think you've lost the German, but you might not be able to remember anything. But if then you go to Germany with me and I've never spoken German, at the end of that week, the German person speaking has picked up the language, even though they don't remember it, and I'm still struggling with Guten Tag, because the brain never, once it's fully myelinated, you know, you might lose some myelin off it, but the brain never really loses it. That's why we get expressions like, it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
You can not ride a bike for 50 years, but you don't have to go and learn how to ride a bike again, even though it's been 50 years. You do lose it a bit because you're a bit wobbly for a start.
A bit
in
rusty.
5 minutes, remyelinate all those pathways and you're just as good at riding a bike as when you were 9, even though you hadn't done it for 50 years. So in some ways, it's not here. But in addition to that, your brain is always adjusting. So like that example I used of not speaking German, you did fall away, even though it's stored back there in the brain, you don't have conscious access to it. So the brain's always, you know, the expression I use is practice becomes biology. Whatever it is you're doing in your life transfers into neural pathways in your brain, which is the biology. So your brain's always adjusting. So it is kind of true, use it or lose it. You don't. Yeah. I have Māori as my second language, Te Reo Māori is my second language, and I know that if I don't speak that, Te Reo Māori for a month, and I go to speak it significantly backwards, I feel that part of my brain wake up over the hour.
Oh, wow.
Speaking. So yeah, that is certainly true, to use it or lose it stuff.
Those are some really great tips. Thank you. Because as you're speaking, I'm like, yes, I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to do that.
Yeah. I find routine is my friend, routine and ritual. So ritualize things and then I do it all the time. So with my kids, when I was trying to have a Māori only speaking environment lots, it was hard to remember times. So I made it inside the car, ritualize it. And then it's just become so easy that when you get in the car, you automatically. To this day, I'm more liable to switch into Te Reo Māori when I'm in the car, just because we had that rule where if you want, you're allowed to say whatever you want in the car. That was also where most of the fighting happened amongst the kids, so that restricted the fighting quite a lot when they were only allowed to speak Māori in the car. So I could target time that was a problem at a time. Now I've had it that when my grandchildren in their first 1,000 days of life, I only speak Māori to them.
Yes.
So
good for you.
Speaking.
Yeah.
So I've only got intermediate level of Māori, but
it's better than nothing. Better than
intermediate enough level up to 2.5. You know.
Yeah.
But it just means that it's ritualized, so that now when I see my grandchildren, I've got 2 grandchildren. It's more automatic for me to speak in Māori to them without having to try. So that ritual, that's what I mean. Ritual's my friend. That helps because once you do it like about 90 times, it's fully myelinated in the brain, and then it's automatic. It's like that for anything. It's like the first 90 times it takes self-motivation and, self-control. But once it's fully myelinated in the brain, it becomes automatic. So ritual is our friend.
Yeah. Talking about ritual, I wanted to share with you, I'm obviously not Maori speaking, but I learned a really great saying that I think has helped me in my relationship. It goes like this. Ka aroa aho ki a koe taku wahine.
Yeah.
which I think means I love you, my woman, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I mean that's the extent of my Maori, having only been 6 years.
But I to say, if I'm happy, then the whole family's happy. That's what I was 6 years.
No. I am obviously you're a dude. I'm a dude. The next question I wanted to double down on, and I'm literally going to read it verbatim because I think we as men generally who are considered not necessarily always the primary caregivers might need to be playing a different role during this time, or the role may need to change. And I feel like it's almost our responsibility to where we can raise the collective consciousness of people so that our community health and wellness is maintained, that by the time we come out of this, we come out of it unscathed. So the question reads, just focusing on the masculine now, for many men, and again, this is a generalization, this will
Yeah.
be the first time that they are having to work, live, relax, commune with their family, and only their family
Yeah.
by and large, from home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What does this man, and if you identify with the masculine, that includes you as well,
Yeah.
what do they need to be conscious of during this time and potentially ongoing as this becomes the new normal?
Okay, good question. I think it's if we frame being nurturers and looking after children and being emotionally present as being something that is very unmasculine and something that we've never done, it can seem very alien and foreign. So I think first of all is to remember that men have been fathers since the beginning of time. We
Yeah.
come from a long, long line of nurturing men. There might be cultural overlays over that about being tough and macho, but at the same time, you had to raise a family since the beginning of time. The Māori culture here, the missionaries, when they first got here, well before the treaty, and we've got all their diaries from before that, they actually criticised Māori men for being far too involved by the English model.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Way too
wow.
soft, over caring with the kids, and I thought they were all going to grow up to be Nancy boys because they were all so soft on them. So yeah, my first thing would be, as men, don't be so scared of jumping into the nurturing, caring role, because you've actually got whakapapa DNA within you that's been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years. You've got this. And most of the men I know, this is not going to be too much of a shock. You know, to my father's generation and to my grandmother's father's generation, it would have been a total bloody shock. My grandfather never cooked a meal, never did his own washing. It was just not what he did. My grandmother wasn't allowed to work because that would look like that my grandfather couldn't support her. There's just one set of grandparents I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my father's generation, he did have to cook meals and stuff occasionally. But I think in my generation, people sort of mid-40s and younger, it's actually pretty normal for us to be involved in this nurturing, caring role. The difference now is we're in lockdown. So I don't think, I think, if I'm honest, when I just look at it from a masculine point of view, again, speaking in broad generalizations, women tend to get sad, men tend to get angry.
Yeah.
My problem was at home with kids would be, shit, my temper. I'm a lovely, caring, nurturing, consciously intelligent, new age man who's also a prick when I get angry. And
Thank you for saying that, by the way. Thank you for saying that, because honestly, sometimes, and just all cards on the table, like I've got this little project called the Conscious Man Project, and then sometimes I lose my rag, and then like I get disappointed with myself. I'm like, but like I don't want to be this guy, you know, like I don't like it, and then I can see how it has a ripple effect. And this is, look, I'm not being physical with anyone, but it's literally just raising my voice.
Just letting anger take you on.
Yeah, and it just sort of, because I've got a long fuse, very long fuse, but then, and then one thing will happen and it'll be like kaboom, you know, so.
Long fuse, but it's connected to an atomic bomb.
Or just a small nuclear missile, you know, just, you know. And it doesn't break or hurt anything, but it's felt, you know, and it's that I'm become even more conscious of, and actually pretty surprised over the last week. It's hardly happened. So blessings. And maybe that's because the world is completely slowed down, and so there's not as much pressure, which I'm grateful for. But
your own brainstem's calm.
I just wanted to say thank you for raising that. So. Yeah, could you?
I think it is because in the situation that I'm in, and I'm a trained counsellor, and I've worked with men around anger management, and you know, about as new age as you can bloody get. And I know my anger still, you know, and like you, I'm not going to hit anybody, but I know swearing is where I know I've really lost the plot. But the point is, I know I've let anger take over, and I think you can see that in the the physiology of a man's brain, that the amygdala is larger in a male than it is in a female. That raw emotion stuff that. We talked about cognitive flexibility before, and the role of the corpus callosum, the bridge that joins the left and the right-hand brain. That has a role in integrating emotion. So, and men have a traditionally much smaller corpus callosum than women do. So, in lots of ways, we have a large emotional center, the amygdala, with a little network, the corpus callosum, to try and regulate it. And actually, we're designed to let the emotions take over. Women have a smaller amygdala in the first place, so already would be easier to regulate. And then their corpus callosum is quite extensive. So it's like they're biologically set up to be able to calm their emotions. Men are almost set up with the amygdala being larger to have their emotions take over. And that's probably from hundreds of years of being warriors and stuff, whatever the reason is. We have this predisposition towards anger. There's no point hiding from it. That's why we have such high domestic violence rates, why men are far more liable to physically beat women. And so the problem would be, even if we're not going to get physical, it is about controlling our anger and having strategies for knowing how to not let that take over, because none of our good parenting comes out of that time.
No,
you know?
no. In fact, I would say you're not even a good parent. You're probably not being a good human at that point.
Yeah, that's right. I think every emotion is valid.
Yeah.
If there's a prowler outside your house threatening your family, and when you wake up in the middle of the night, that's a good time to get angry. You don't want to be scared. And anger can serve you well at that point. The worst thing you could do is be scared. So all emotions have their place, but in our interactions and stuff with our children, anger is not going to help a whole lot. So how are we going to, it's that self-knowledge again, know thyself. What are you going to do to improve that? There is that little voice in your head, and it just needs fed. It needs made stronger. There is that little voice in my head that goes, oh, look, you just swore. It's not in your belief system that swearing at your kids is a good idea. So clearly we're not operating out of a belief system now. We're operating out of a emotional,
you've gone rogue. Yeah.
So my little voice is saying, I should stop now and get out of this parenting interaction and come back when I'm calmer. But often your amygdala or your emotional voice is much stronger. Like, no, I've got to learn. So it is often just about practicing to listen to that little voice, to try and take, I often say the difference between success and failure is 1 second. If you can pause for 1 second, get angry, just stop 1 second and do nothing for 1 second. Often 1 second is enough for you to go, oh no, that's right, I don't want to be this guy. And you'll go away and you'll think of a way better way to deal with that. You learn this anyway as a grandparent. Because like I've got I remember my 3-year-old granddaughter behaving in a way that was really frustrating. 3-year-olds are frustrating. With my own children, I would have probably got angry with by this point. But I can't get angry with my granddaughter. She's never seen me get angry with her. She'd be devastated. So I'm not a full-time carer. So you are forced to have to find a way to deal with the situation when you don't get angry. And you work out, oh, that's actually not that hard. Yeah. I wish I'd done that with my kids rather than wait until I'm a grandparent. So now I'm just advocating for everyone else. Don't wait until you're a grandparent and learn to do it naturally. You can learn to have non-anger-based resolving of things while you're a parent. You've just got to have that 1 second pause to not flip out of that time to be able to walk away. Interestingly, in the research, the thing that actually, because it is physiological, it's to do with the vagus nerve. You're probably familiar with the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the major artery connection between the heart and the stomach. It's a lot to do with that stress response system.
So that connects the heart brain to the gut brain? Is that?
That's right. So the people that flip out and have lost it for a good hour and can't bring it back together and got no control, you could say don't have very good vagal tone. But the people who get a shock and flip out, but then are quick to bring their frontal cortex back online and get their shit together, have good vagal tone. So you can improve your vagal tone, and that will improve how quickly you get your shit together and how you control your anger. So much so, so when men go to anger management courses, because they've had domestic violence convictions, the research suggests they would be far better off to focus on improving their vagal tone and stop them losing their shit rather than just anger management. And the number one thing in the literature, I don't know if a lot of men are going to like this, but knowledge is power. So the number one thing in the literature for actually improving your vagal tone is yoga.
What?
A lot of guys, yoga's going to
there you go.
Stuff. Something about the stretching and putting yourself into those positions that they don't know how it works. They just know that yoga improves your vagal tone really quickly. The good news for guys, though, is the other ways of doing it is all that warm, fluffy stuff that you don't want to do. Going to a therapist or getting a counsellor and talking about it, putting your feelings into a coherent story. So if you compare it to that, yoga suddenly doesn't look so bad. And you can go to yoga. You can go to yoga the whole time and go and be thinking the whole time, this is a load of shit. I don't even think it's going to work. As long as you do it consistently for 3 months, it improves your vagal tone even when you haven't got the fire. It's again the power, like we said about talking before, the power of actually doing it and getting it from that angle. You don't have to believe it. So actually, yoga is something that you can do. Men like tangible things. Mm-hmm. When you tell men, love yourself, they're like, what the fuck does that mean? That's not really helpful.
They might take it to a place that's really not appropriate.
When you give tangible things and say, go to bed at a similar time every night and get up at a similar time. They handle those things much better. So yoga is actually quite a tangible thing. You don't have to go into any soft, warm, fluffy, fairy stuff. You can do it at home in privacy. There's yoga with Adriana. Is the one I've heard is free and is really, really good.
I've also seen there's a yoga for men that's come out. Not that, not that men need a separate yoga, but I think if it appeals to the masculine in a way that's meaningful, look at it. I think, yeah, just a quick Google, just yoga for men, and you'll see a couple of things come up. And I think this lockdown time, a lot of people are giving away free sessions for like 21 days. So if you're a gent, or if you're a woman who is with a gent who think they could benefit from this, just Google yoga for men, and a lot of places are giving that out for nothing. So I'm just looking at the time, Nathan. I don't want to take any more of your time, and there's a really big meaty question that I'm going to leave for another time. But what I wanted to get your thoughts on is, during this period, whether we like it or not, we are going to be exposed to messaging through brands and stuff online. I work in the branding space, and I must say it's hugely confusing. Do you have any thoughts or pearls of wisdom that you could put out there to someone who's working within the space to help them be, I want to use the word responsible during this time? Like, what would you say that businesses, good businesses who care for their customer base, who care about the product that they make, what ought they to be doing consciously to maintain a level of community? Does that make sense?
Brilliance. Yep, absolutely. I think the key word is going to be connection.
Okay.
Which is strange in terms of we're isolated. But that just means human beings are so interdependent. So much of your neurochemistry is dependent on interactions with other people. We know that elderly people that have a pet animal have better mental health than elderly people that don't have a pet, just by the process of saying, come on, Rover, it's dinner time now, you need to eat, releases a few peptides and stuff. And that cumulative result of that equals more mental health. So humans are definitely interdependent, and isolation is the number one cause of mental illness. So if I was an employer, I'd say, how do I keep my employees connected while in isolation? Because it's a challenge, but you can. You can still, instead of just phoning every now and then, you can still go, okay, we're having a virtual morning tea at 10 o'clock. So everyone's getting, here's the link, and everyone's going to come. So there is still a ritual. There is still a reason to put your pants on. because, and then when you get it, it's not just an information sharing quickly, I need that report. When you get to a morning tea, people are joking and they're laughing and they're telling funny stories about their kid in isolation and stuff. And that's just as important, that sense of connection. It's like connection breeds belonging. Belonging breeds well-being. Well-being breeds success. I mean, connection and belonging are kind of the same thing. So you could just say connection breeds well-being. Well-being breeds success, but it starts with connection. So the challenge is, how do we stay connected in an isolated environment? Because it is possible.
And that'll be an extremely interesting challenge, I think, for brands. So I understand the employer-employee thing. I mean, that goes without saying, that if you're going to be spending, or at least previous to COVID, 40 plus hours a week together, like, you better have some level of connection. But I think the sort of the tenuous at best sometimes connection between brand and consumer. I think brands need to be quite focused also on that connection piece, right? And so we for Sharp & Co look after numerous brands, and one of the ways that I see things working quite well is Instagram currently have an Insta Live thing. You did one recently. On Tuesday. So having, like, for example, the brand actually come online, and maybe answer any questions from their community or their audience, especially when they can't ship stuff out. Like, that's just one way that I see community happening and connection happening. Because if you can't ship, you can't sell. But your community is more than just the value that they bring in dollar terms to you. It's
Oh, ultimately, they are, that is the business model, isn't it? But I think, yeah, they're going to have to brands are going to have to nurture their customers through this. So
Yeah.
even if we don't want to lose our whole customer base. So customers do really like that sense of loyalty because we are human beings. The insurance company that's saying nothing about your overdue premium, that is just saying we're just checking in to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help you get through this difficult time, and we're in this together. We're there with you in some way.
Yeah.
That goes a long way to securing that brand. So,
I don't want to, we haven't spoken about this, and I don't want to mention it without your permission, but you work with an insurance brand?
Oh, yeah. That's
would it be okay if we said their name?
Yeah, I think so.
So NIB Insurance, you've been doing some video work with them during this period, I would imagine?
Yeah. Well, I was going to be doing that this year anyway. So I've got a 1-year contract with them to work alongside them. Because it's a mutually beneficial thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm not going buy NIB Insurance because that's not what I want. I just want that same thing that I think other brands are looking at, to look after the people holistically.
Yeah.
And so alongside things that serve benefit, like it is easy to match up the stuff that I'm doing with wellbeing, which is pretty easy to match up with health insurance. I wouldn't be comfortable, I think. I mean, never say never. I know it's what people do all the time, don't they? They sell Nike shoes and stuff, and they go, here, buy NIB Insurance and stuff, so maybe I would. But what I'm working with them is more around parenting stuff. So it's got more authenticity and integrity to it. And
there's substance, and it's aligned. It's aligned to your being. So and that's
and it serves to help. They're just adding technical stuff like to the video posts that I do. They're supplying a crew, and they're just really scaffolding around stuff that I would do anyway. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Yeah.
So we're almost out of time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your good company, Nathan. I wanted to give you an opportunity now to sort of sum up to the individual listening out there who's going through lockdown. What would be, based on what we've just discussed, and maybe something that we haven't discussed, what would be a one-liner that you would share with them to take away as we move through the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 weeks? Who knows? What would you say?
Nurture yourself as if you were your own best friend, as if you were put in charge of your best friend's well-being. Look after yourself that well. Don't look after yourself as well as you would look after yourself normally. Look after yourself as well as you would look after your best friend if you were totally put in charge of their well-being.
Nathan, wise words from a wise man. Thank you for your good company. And I look forward to seeing more of your videos. I know that you're going to be posting more on your Instagram. Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. They could just go to YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel up, put Nathan Wallace in, and it all comes up. We'll go to nathanwallace.com, got a webpage, and of course, we'll go to Nathan Wallace X Factor Education on Facebook.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Nathan Wallace of Conscious Intelligence, a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your mana. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you. Bye-bye.